History happened everywhere.
The verdict.
This is our after-show podcast where we take a look back at episode 13, Sweden. So if you haven't listened to that one, why not go back and check it out? Otherwise, there will be spoilers.
No, that was my Swedish.
Hello, and welcome to History Happened Everywhere, The Verdict. I'm Ryan Weir, and I'm here with Pete Goddard.
What's up?
We're also joined by our regular critic and reviewer, Paul Dersley. Hello, Paul.
Hello, how are you?
We're very well. I'm looking forward to seeing what you have to say about Pete's effort this week.
I was hoping it would be slightly out of your realm of knowledge, being animals and such.
Not really very history, is it?
There were animals throughout history, I think you'll find.
What do you count as history then, Paul? I'm intrigued because this is something that me and Pete have talked about in the past. Is like, what counts? And I figure it's anything that would have existed at that time is history.
That's my loose interpretation as well.
What about you?
Yes, I guess whether you switch in the anthropomorphic side, whether it's just to do with humanity. If there was no humanity, would there be any history? Because it only exists in our brains.
That's a really good way of putting it. You're absolutely right. Where do you fall on that side of the fence? Humanity never existed. Is there history?
I would suggest that there wouldn't be. But then, of course, you have the word prehistory, which sort of does suppose that there is no humanity.
Yeah. Let's start at the beginning. What was your favourite part of the episode? Let's start on a positive.
The favourite part of the episode was Pete mentioning Viking hats with horns, which they didn't have.
Au contraire, it was Ryan who mentioned Viking hats with horns.
Oh,
not
sorry.
I'm perfectly aware they didn't have horns.
You jumped straight on me with that one, didn't you? Throw me under the bus, jerk.
Well, I nearly did it then. That was why it stands out to me. I was like, should I do that? No, I'm not that pedantic. But of course, we know that the Paul Dersley is that pedantic.
So they didn't have that. So where does that come from then? Why do we think of Vikings with horns on helmets? Did anybody have horns on helmets?
I'm not sure, but I think it was because of one of the early films of Vikings, the turn of the 20th century. They put hats on.
Hello, this is the voice of the internet. The fictional image of a Viking wearing a horned helmet dates back to the 1800s when Scandinavian artists included them in their paintings. At this same time, Wagner also staged a very popular opera where Viking characters wore horned helmets. In reality, Northern Europeans did wear helmets with horns, wings, and antlers on them. But these were likely only worn for ceremonial purposes and predate the Vikings by hundreds of years. Thank you.
Yeah, I was taught this a long time ago in school when they put it quite practically, which was if someone swings a sword at your head, you want it to deflect. You don't want it to catch on your head. So horns were very unlikely to have been a sensible part of one's battle attire.
But wait, it must have come from somewhere. Just the imagination of someone to stick a horn on a helmet? Why not just wear the helmet?
I think it did happen in some societies, but it was sort of more of a religious cultural thing. And, as Pete says, it's totally stupid if you're going to war with a horn on your helmet.
I could see that, actually. You're right. If it was like some sort of tribal ritual, and you're trying to replicate the fact that you are, some sort of animal, to have horns on your hat.
Right, for ceremonial purposes and for display, you might have all sorts of things on your helmet, but you probably wouldn't take it into battle with you.
Yeah, I can give you a low light of the episode if you want.
Please do.
We're jumping straight into it. So let's do it. Come on then. What didn't you enjoy?
The South African singing. I don't understand why there was a South African there.
A South African singing? How do you mean? What singing for a start? I can't remember.
Well, when they were singing about all the animals, it sounded like a South African.
Oh, well, one, it wasn't singing.
Correct.
And are you talking about history happened with the animals?
It does sound a bit South African now you mention it.
One thing I did think, I hope those Swedes are soft-hearted because there were quite a few stereotypes there.
Well, we did have a conversation
We did.
as to whether it was racist to try and do the accent. Yeah, our reasoning was, would we do a Chinese accent? No, because it would be cringy, so maybe... And also, the fact that I, for one, am absolutely dreadful at accents. It's probably, arguably, my defence because it would never be recognisable as any kind of accent.
Yeah,
it's one that we have to be sensitive to.
It's not punching down, is it, with Swedes? Because Swedes, we already discussed, are all supermodels, Nobel laureates, and Nobel people themselves.
Yeah.
So I feel like in the context of the episode where we were basically saying how fantastic the place was, we could probably get away with it.
Anything else bug you in particular? Anything factual that you spotted that we'd said wrong, or that Pete had said wrong because it was his one? Just pointing that out.
I can't think of anything offhand. Yeah.
Oh, so there was nothing wrong in the one that I did, Ryan. Is that what we're saying?
Oh.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't go that far.
Yeah.
I suppose it was a difficult one because of the subject. As I was saying, is it history?
See, I think our concept is something happened. Even if there were no people there, something happened. History happened. It may be that people weren't there to write it down and tell stories about it, but something was going on. And if we can extrapolate what was going on, then we can still learn something and find ourselves entertained.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that did remind me, it reminded me of my O-level geography lessons with your U-shaped valleys.
I really got my geography on there. I was quite pleased with that. Did you look at the picture of the Laporten?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you should. It's really quite remarkable.
It's on the front page of our website currently.
hhepodcast?
As of recording, but only for a week until the next podcast comes out, and then it's gone.
So did you learn anything, Paul?
Well, I didn't realise that Sweden bounced back so quickly.
That's remarkable, isn't it? 8 millimetres a year.
Yes, that's faster than your nails grow, I think.
Is that right?
I suppose you think about it. You know, ice is incredibly dense, and so not as dense as water, obviously, which is unusual in its own right. The solid form is less dense than the liquid form. But that's all to do with the weird nature of the water molecule. But you think all of that ice, and then it goes, and then of course you're still getting the hydrothermal pressure from the mantle underneath, so it sort of it bounces up again. And so probably the coastline, and then you mentioned loads and loads of islands. They probably could be a consequence of that, because those islands might have just been tops of hills. And of course, as the sort of sea level would rise,
So do you think if you recorded for 100,000 years and then you played it back really quickly, you'd get a sound like a ruler against the edge of a desk? As it rises up.
I think it'd be more like scraping your fingers along a dustbin lid, which I absolutely hate.
That's incredibly specific.
Dustbin lid. I've heard of a blackboard.
A dustbin lid.
For me, it was a dustbin. You know, this was a time when the dustbin men used to actually come into your garden and empty the bins themselves, rather than you having to do it yourself and having surly little council officials saying you can't put that type of plastic in the plastic container. Well, it's plastic.
Paul, have you been to Sweden?
No, I haven't. It's one of the few countries in Europe I haven't been to.
Why is that? Any particular reason? You got anything against the Swedish? Why do you hate the Swedish, Paul?
I've got nothing against the Swedes at all.
In the podcast, Pete suggested that he and I go for a walk along the Högenkirchen.
No, before you even ask.
My question is, would you like to come with us for the walk along the Högenkirchen?
I've already answered that question.
We'll do the podcast live from the Högenkirchen.
Can a podcast be live?
Yeah, you stream it.
Live from the Högenkirchen.
Live from the Högenkirchen, yeah.
Yeah, the answer is still no.
Okay.
What if we carried you in a palanquin?
I think you're going to have to explain what a palanquin is to those that don't know.
That's like the box.
Because I know, obviously.
Like a stretcher, but with a box and with a seat in the middle.
Okay.
I think I prefer a sedan chair.
I'm sure we could arrange that.
We'll do your wheelchair. That's our final
How about
offer.
a sled? We'll just pull you in a sled.
We'll drag you on a litter.
Yeah,
How about you just walk?
Push me down a mountain.
10 miles a day, you can do that. Come on, Paul.
No.
Fine.
All right.
Okay, so are you going to make us some flax pants?
No, because I don't want to see you in them.
Right, so here's the thing. I have ordered some flax pants after this episode. I've went online and I could not find flax pants to save my life.
I wonder why that is.
I went and found some this one tailor that's out in Slovakia or somewhere, and they are tailoring me a pair of flax pants. It was only then that I realized, having ordered and spent some money on my flax pants, that flax is just linen, and that I could have just ordered some linen pants.
It's a type of linen, yes.
Yeah. Didn't realize that. Thought I was getting something that was exclusive.
I didn't realize either, and I didn't spend any money, so it's okay by me. But I am both amused and sympathetic.
Well, at some point, I will be wearing my flex pants, and I shall reveal all
No.
once I get them.
You're down the line. It's all right for you. I have to look at it in the flesh.
Tell me about the Northern Lights, and did Pete get that right?
Amazingly, yes. One thing you didn't mention, which is sort of interesting, is the Northern Lights and the Southern Lights happen at the same time, and they're exactly the same with a few microseconds delay. But what happens is the electrons bounce around the radiation belts of the Earth, and so they're hitting the same latitude in the Southern Hemisphere. So if you could go down to the Southern Hemisphere, you would actually see the same display that you were seeing in the Northern Hemisphere.
Okay, I misunderstood what you were saying. I thought you just meant like they happen at the same time, but you're saying the exact same shapes and everything.
Well, they happen at the same time, and they are the same.
That's bonkers. How on earth did they find that out?
Well, it's physics.
I think they worked it out rather than went, look,
run.
Yeah, what does yours look like? It's kind of red and swirly. So is mine.
I think seeing the Northern Lights would be one of the things I'd love to do, but a lot of people have said they're actually more disappointing than you think they are.
We're going to see loads of them on the Hurgen-Gurden.
Oh, yeah, we're going to have a great time.
So, Paul, I asked Pete a question, which is how long he think he would fare in a Viking battle. Were I to transport him there suddenly with a sword in his hand, how long he would last?
I think he was a bit optimistic.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, he said about 10 minutes, didn't he? Or 20 minutes?
No, I said 3 to 7 minutes to prove that I was a wizard using my technology before they killed me.
Yeah. In the middle of a battle, I don't think you even got that time. Anyway, Paul, I'm more interested in you. What's your, how long are you going to last?
About as long as it takes for a sword to cut through my body. Although the Vikings weren't as vicious as, again, they're made out to be. Yes, they were warriors, but they were mainly farmers.
And farmers that kept moving around as well.
Yeah, I never knew that. It's a sort of the early Turnip Townsend, but they just moved the whole farm instead of swapping fields around.
I don't know what a Turnip Townsend is.
Oh, it was Townsend, who was a lord in Norfolk in the 18th century, sort of was the one who discovered that if you had a field rotation system, by you sort of put 1 year you put something that put nitrogen in the soil, another year you put something that put something else, phosphorus or something in the soil.
Okay.
Then you had to leave it fallow for the following year, and then you could put clover or something else in it the year after that. And it meant it didn't exhaust one field, because if you constantly take using a field or an allotment or an area of ground for this growing the same type of vegetables, the ground would just get exhausted.
Okay, all the nutrients and everything.
Yeah, and he kept on ramming this on everyone, and he was always known as Turnip Townsend.
It's rather cruel, considering he was right.
Yeah, true. I get the feeling as well that he probably wasn't the first person to discover that. I'm guessing there are probably Peruvians or someone that had discovered seasonal farming and turning things around.
Yeah, and he was a lord, so people listened to what he said.
True.
It makes a big difference, doesn't it?
It does.
So, Paul, I put you in the gladiatorial arena and released one of the Swedish animals upon you. Which of the Swedish animals would you choose to do battle with?
The beaver, I think. Everybody likes a beaver, and it's also a very funny animal.
It is a funny animal. Do you know any beaver facts?
Well, they were originally introduced in Cornwall, I think, and they've sort of made the environment so much better in such a short time. They make nice top hats as well.
What, alive or just their fur?
You just pop one on your head before you go out. It will keep you warm and be a stylish addition to any outfit.
Yeah, and you can use the tail as like a baseball
Like a
cap.
flap as a visor.
Yeah, it's a visor.
Yeah, that's what all the top hats in the 18th and 19th century were made of. And basically, that was the whole thing about the fur trade in North America, was basically for beaver hats.
And that's why you're saying that they've just been reintroduced in Cornwall and England, right?
Yeah,
hat.
because they weren't vast numbers given the size of the country, so it was quite exhaustible, and it was exhausted pretty quickly. But given that North America was, 200 times larger than Britain.
So if they've reintroduced them, how long do you think they've been absent from England's rivers?
I think it was 400 years. A long time to not have any beaver.
Yeah, it does make me wonder, though, like reintroducing animals like that, what the effects are. Yeah, for
Reintroducing is a bit different to introducing, isn't it? So there's all tales of the cane toad and various other creatures that have been brought in because, if I just bring in the toad, it will deal with these insects, and suddenly you've got a major problem. But reintroduction, you would assume, would just reach the balance that it was at once previously.
Well, you'd think so, but I can't reintroduce dinosaurs and things to be at its balance previously. There must be a time period associated with that. And I'm guessing 400 years is quite a significant period of time for nature to have evolved, for the absence of beavers.
No, there's no time at all.
No, I think, you're right. I don't think it's any time at all. And also, don't forget that predator animals would fall off as well. It's that, it's the logistics equation. You reduce one, and then you get a reduction in the hunters, which then goes through, and you get different cycles coming out of it.
Paul, what would you do if a wolf attacked you?
Well, you stand still. I have actually been in a position like that, funnily enough.
Story time.
Extraordinarily unexpected. Go on.
It was in South Africa. A long while ago. In South Africa, back again. In a game reserve, when a friend and I were out with a guide, and we came across a lion in the wild. And so the guide was sort of saying, "Well, this is what we do. We're going to see how close we can get to the lion."
Okay.
And my legs were like jelly at the time.
Right.
What he did was he said, first of all, he undid his shirt and put a heavy weight in the pocket. So he said, well, what's going to happen is if he reacts to us, the first thing that we do is we stop, and then we make ourselves as big as possible and shout.
Okay.
And if that doesn't stop him, I will then throw my shirt at him, and so the weight would go, and he would go after that. And then if that failed, he'd shoot it.
What?
So your first mistake there, Paul, was to have legs like jelly, because lions absolutely love jelly.
And tigers like tea.
Exactly. So just to go back to something you said, Ron, about chaos theory, and you don't really know the impact of reintroducing something.
Yeah.
I did read a little bit about this, because the reintroduction of various animals is quite a current topic in various places.
Yeah.
And they reintroduced the wolves into, I think it was Yellowstone Park.
Yeah.
And it had all sorts of interesting and slightly unexpected effects, in that not just there were some wolves and the wolves ate the deer, but actually it changed the behavior of the deer. So the deer that would previously hang around in open fields started restricting themselves to more concealed areas. And that meant the flora of the open areas started to change, and you started to grow more trees.
Yeah.
And it had quite a substantial impact just on the way things moved, and that then enabled things that had been previously eaten by the deer to grow, and the landscape was quite significantly and unexpectedly impacted.
Yeah, in a good or bad way?
In a balanced way, I suppose. I think it was considered a good thing. But then the real debate was then, at some point, somebody is going to get eaten by a reintroduced wolf, and at that point, is that a price worth paying, and how do you even decide something like that?
Well, yeah, again, that just turns down to modern sensibilities, doesn't it? In the past, people were eaten by crocodiles or wolves or sharks. Oh, okay, it happens. Now, it's world news when someone gets mauled off the coast of Australia by a shark. Well, the poor thing is only doing what it was supposed to do.
No, that's very true. I do feel sorry for the sharks. They seem to have a rough old ride of it at the moment.
Yeah, it's like those, I don't know, I always find that, when you watch those David Attenborough documentary things, I'm always on the side of the predator. You know, the prey are always rather pathetic little gazelle pronking around, and then you get the sort of the superior predators like the lions or the tigers.
Does this inform your political outlook by any chance?
Well, it's Darwinism, isn't it? Red in tooth and claw.
Paul, would you purchase an IKEA apartment stroke house and live in it and build it yourself?
No, is the simple answer. Yeah, I never understand IKEA. It just seems to be like a Swedish habitat.
Have you ever been in one?
Yeah. The problem is you can never get out of the bloody things. You have to sort of walk 3/4 of a mile before you get to the end of it.
Yeah, it's like a labyrinth, isn't it?
Yeah, you sort of go in for one thing and you have to walk past everything to get to it. I suppose it's brilliant marketing, but...
Yeah, it's super clever. The psychology behind how an IKEA runs.
Stupid names that they give things. They're all called Billy and Boko and Bonzo or whatever.
Have you ever seen
Dersley.
IKEA Nights?
What the hell is IKEA Nights?
IKEA Nights is a sitcom / soap opera, not sure which was filmed entirely in IKEA, in an IKEA, entirely without the knowledge of the people who worked in IKEA and that IKEA at the time.
Hidden cameras and stuff.
So they just guerrilla filmed in using all the rooms as sets.
So what, they were playing shop assistants and customers, or they were just using the sets as sets?
They were just using the sets as sets to do a sort of domestic set sitcom.
No, I haven't. That sounds brilliant. I love that idea.
So I've got a question for you, Paul. If IKEA wrote to you tomorrow and said, we're going to name a product called the Dersley in honor of you, you can choose any of the items in our store to call the Dersley. What item would you pick? Would it be like a wooden spoon, or would it be a light? Would it be a chair or a table? Like what's the Dersley? What are people going in to buy the Dersley of?
It would be a lavatory seat.
Yep, fair. Okay.
I don't know. Do they do sanitary wear at IKEA?
I'm sure you can buy I'm sure you can buy a toilet seat.
Like a nice pine, polished pine Dersley.
Yeah. Oh, why do people sit on wooden lavatory seats? I just don't understand that. Well, it's unhygienic.
All right, let's draw this to a close then. So, Paul, what's your final grade on Pete's episode 13, Sweden? In when was it?
1000 to 1100.
1000 to 1100, and topic being nature. What grade are you going to give it, Paul?
If I was superstitious, I might say unlucky 13.
I would too.
I would give it a B-.
Oh, that's quite good.
That's all right. I can live with that, especially because we had some debate as to whether it was really history or not. Yeah. I think I got off lightly then.
So, Paul, you gave him a B-. Okay, well, I think that was deserved.
I'm pretty happy with that, actually.
I think that's okay. Good. Okie doke. So, Paul, thanks for joining us for another episode of The Verdict.
Okay, cheers, Ryan. Cheers, Pete. Bye.
Pete, anything to add before we close off?
I'd like to say get in touch, please. Send us an email, put a comment on your podcasting app, contact us on Instagram or Twitter or anything.
Never heard you beg before.
Just us and Dersley. Somebody help.
All right. Thank you very much for listening to History Happened Everywhere.
The Verdict.
Thanks for listening to History Happened Everywhere. I'm Ryan and he's Pete. And if you want to get in touch with either of us, you can do that through hhepodcast@gmail.com.
Or you can use HHE Podcast in any of the usual social media.
That's right. And, if you did enjoy the show and you're enjoying it, let's help spread the word, get more people coming. And you can do that by rating and reviewing at your podcast provider.
We'd love to hear what you think. as long as it's nice.
Yeah, please be nice.
Be nice.
We're
Be
very
kind.
sensitive. Who's touching the microphone?
I was just moving the spit guard.
It's a pop shield.
It's a what?
It's a pop shield.
Pop shield. Okay.
It protects you from pop songs. You'd like it.
Surely it should be over my ears, not my mouth.
All right, do you want to hear a sound engineer's joke?
Yes.
I know a Polish sound engineer and a Czech one too.
Yes.
A Czech one too.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay.